guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. Today we're going to be doing an April wrap up. So grab a drink and grab a snack and let's get into the 11 books that I read in the month of April. Okay, so if you watch my recent vlog, you'll kind of know the situation. So I didn't do a March wrap up, but I kind of covered all the books I read in March in that vlog if you want to know what I read in the month of March. But at the end of March, I read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, the last book in the Hunger Games series, and it put me in a slump. So for most of April, I was in a slump and I did a lot of rereads. So it's going to be a lot of rereads, a lot of getting out of a slump. That's kind of the theme of this April wrap up. So let's just get into it. The first book I read in April was the third book in the Black Rose Auction series by Sav R. Miller. This is Stolen Vows. I should say this book is by Sav R. Miller, but this series is actually by 6 different authors. So every author did their own novella in this series. And the series basically revolves around this one night where there's this auction. It's kind of like a taboo auction where people sell themselves. They sell like really exclusive items, things like that. And it's supposed to be like for the elite of this society that they all live in. And this one was definitely more so mafia vibes in my opinion. I guess this is connected to a different series by Sav R. Miller, and this female character is a sister of a couple of the other characters. If you ever read anything else by her, you probably know the connection better than I do. But basically, all these sisters have a father who's in the mafia, and he's a terrible guy. He's terrible. He uses his daughters to pay off debts. He uses them to basically try to up his status in the mafia. He doesn't really care about his daughters at all. And unfortunately, this daughter's story is no different. He basically forces her into a marriage with this other guy. This is kind of like a Rapunzel retelling as well. So the female main character is, you know, like trapped in the tower where, you know, the mafia prince has her kept or whatever. But she does escape. There is a time jump to like years later, and you find out he's basically been like following her this whole time, keeping an eye on her. And you also find out that he's kind of harbored feelings for her prior to when they had the arranged marriage situation, because they grew up in the same city, kind of in the same circle, so they knew about each other since they were kids. And yeah, so I did like that aspect of it. I liked how they had history together. I like how it was a dual timeline situation where you got some flashback scenes a little bit here or there, and then you get the time jump to when they reunite years later after the marriage escape, if you will. Yeah, like I said, I like that aspect. I feel like it's, you know, it's kind of a similar vibe to a mafia romance with a little bit of a fairy tale retelling mixed in, I guess, but it didn't like grip me as much as I wanted it to. I still think Katie Roberts' book in this series has been the best one, the first one. Wicked Pursuit has been my favorite. This one I gave like 3.5 stars. I feel like 3.5 is a pretty good rating for this one. Like I said, it wasn't bad. It just didn't wow me. You know what I mean? So do with that what you will. I wanted to read that because I thought since that was a series of novellas on Kindle Unlimited, I thought that'd be a good thing for me to binge to kind of get out of my slump. Didn't really work. So I went to the next thing, which was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This was on my TBR for April. I decided to just pick something off the list since I didn't really like want to read anything. I was just like, okay, just pick something and read it. So I picked this one because it was on Kindle Unlimited Read and Listen, I believe. So I also wanted that flexibility of like listening or reading to kind of help me get out of the slump, and it definitely helped. This was a really, really good book. It definitely surprised me and wowed me. I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I did. And I guess I read it at a good time because they started talking about like casting for a movie that they're gonna do for it, so that's exciting. But anyway, so this one is about our female main character. She just got out of prison and she was charged with killing her ex-boyfriend. Or I mean, they never really broke up, but I mean, he died, so there you go. It's about her going back to the town where she was arrested in and where she was with the boyfriend at, because when she was put in prison, she had a baby. And she's trying to get custody back. Not even custody back necessarily. She just wants to like see her daughter, because I think it's been 5 years since she's been in prison. She just wants some kind of connection to her daughter, even if it's just like seeing her every once in a while. She doesn't even know what she looks like. She hasn't seen pictures of her. Basically, as soon as she gave birth, they took the baby away, and she hasn't seen her daughter in the past 5 years. So very angsty, very emotional. And of course, this is a romance. She comes to the small town, and her first night there, she's trying to kind of like go back to, you know, old places she remembers going to with her boyfriend to kind of reminisce. And she tries to go to this, I think it's like a bookstore or a library or coffee shop, something like that is what she thinks she's going back to, but it's been turned into a bar. So she goes in and sits down, she orders a coffee at a bar, and the bar owner ends up being the love interest. Colleen Hoover is known for her good twists, so I'm not gonna spoil that. This definitely hit that. I mean, I feel like it's also one you could kind of see coming, but it's still like once you realize what the twist is pretty early on, it's not even like the point of the book, you know, but there is like a little bit of a twist with their connection, and then it just makes the story way more angsty. Like it really ramps it up, and you're just really feeling for both characters. And this definitely had me crying. This was very emotional, but in a good way. Sometimes Colleen Hoover books piss me off because it's like she just tries to make them so emotional, almost more like for the shock value of it instead of it being intentional. So sometimes her books can rub me the wrong way because it's like, oh, you're just picking the worst thing possible to happen to these people because you want us to feel something, instead of, like I said, it feeling intentional and purposeful. And this was definitely intentional and purposeful. This was a great story. I love the way it was written. I love the characters, and it really makes you think. I think this is a really good debate of like of right and wrong, or like good and bad. I really like this one. I gave it 5 stars. It didn't necessarily get me out of a slump. I feel like I still don't really want to read anything else after this because it was so emotional. So it probably wasn't the best time to pick this up, because I was still reeling after the emotional read of the Sunrise on the Reaping. So, but it's fine. It was really good. So, because nothing was really working, I decided to just do some rereads, because that's usually my trick to get out of a slump. I am going to film a video after this, hopefully, of, you know, my tricks to get out of a slump. So we'll dive more into that in that video. But I decided to do some rereads, and I decided to reread the Hunger Games series because I hadn't read the first 3, Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay. I hadn't read those probably since high school, honestly. It's probably when I read them for the first time. I don't think I ever reread them. I've watched the movies multiple times. The movies are great, but reading the books will always be better. You know what I mean? If you've never read this series before, I highly recommend it. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what genre of book you like to read. I feel like everyone needs to read these. I wish that this could be like required reading in schools. It's like a dystopian society, right? And you have the Capitol, and there was this big war where the districts tried to rebel against the Capitol, and it caused devastation for everybody. So as a way to kind of get retribution and teach everybody a lesson and to keep the peace, the Capitol has created these Hunger Games where every year the districts have to put up 2 kids from their district to fight in this game where only one victor will remain. And it's basically a way for the district kids to kind of be the vengeance for the Capitol and all the kids and the people that they lost in the war. So that's kind of the premise of this dystopian society. And in this particular year of the Hunger Games, we have Katniss Everdeen and Peeta Mellark. They're the District 12 tributes, and something happens in their games that has never happened before, and it just kind of evolves into kind of a more like revolutionary plot. If you've never read it, please do. If you have read it, I'm sure you love it. I haven't heard anyone not like this series, so I mean, it's a no-brainer. I gave Hunger Games and Catching Fire 5 stars for sure. Mockingjay is my least favorite book for some reason. I don't know why. But I didn't get the 5-star feeling with that one. I gave that one 4.5 stars. So then, to continue the rereading, in March I reread Twisted Love for like the 3rd or 4th time. I love that book. I know it gets a lot of hate, but it also has kind of like a cult following, and I don't know what it is. Is it cheesy? Yes. Is it over the top? Absolutely. But there's just something about it, okay? So I finished the rest of those, kind of. So Twisted Games is the 2nd book. This one is a bodyguard and a princess. Age gap, forbidden. This one I didn't like as much on the reread. Again, I was in a slump, so my view was definitely biased at the time, because I was also like rereading Hunger Games kind of in between, because I was reading those physically and then I was reading the Twisted books on my Kindle. So like, kind of a weird mix. But this one is really good. This one has great spicy scenes for sure. I think this one just spans such a long period of time where I feel like this story was definitely too dragged out. So I don't know if I would give it a 5-star rating again. Upon the reread, I gave it 4 stars. And then the third book, Twisted Hate, I don't like that one personally. So I skipped that one. And I did a reread of Twisted Lies, the 4th book, and I kind of liked that one more. Maybe even a little bit more than Twisted Love. I don't know. That's kind of a bold statement. Because Twisted Love has been one of my favorite books of all time for a while. So it's hard for me to say Twisted Lies is better, but I think it might be. I don't know. The storyline I don't think is better. But I think I like the characters. I like Christian and Stella more than I like Ava and Alex. I think that's what it is. I like the characters more in Twisted Lies, but the storyline in Twisted Love is way better. Twisted Lies, the main character is like a billionaire. He's in charge of like a security company, so he's kind of like, he's very techie and very morally gray. So if you like a morally gray hero, you're gonna love Christian Harper. And then Stella is actually an influencer, and she also has a stalker, and she lives in the same building as Christian, and he is, you know, trying to help her catch the stalker, plus a couple other, you know, plot lines thrown in there that I'm not going to spoil for you. But like I said, really, really good. I liked it even better upon the reread. 5 stars. Then I read my book club pick. So if you're new, me and Katie Reads on YouTube, we have a thrilling romance book club where every month we alternate thrillers and romances, and this month was a thriller, so we read Ward D by Frida McFadden, and I like this more than I thought I would. I gave it 4 stars. I'm sure everyone and their mother says this. Is Frida McFadden the greatest literary writer of all time? No. But if you want a short, bingeable, twisty thriller, she's gonna deliver. She delivers what she promises, and really, that, like, what more can you ask for when you're getting a book, you know what I mean? This one is about a medical student named Amy, and she has to spend an overnight shift in a psych ward, Ward D. And you kind of know that there's something from her past that is making her especially hesitant to work this shift, but you don't really know what her past entails. So you kind of, it alternates every chapter between present and past to kind of, you know, give you clues along the way of why she's so hesitant to work in this psych ward. And it wouldn't be a Frida book if there weren't multiple plot twists and multiple twisted turns to keep you guessing. You don't really know how it's gonna end. And I think she definitely delivered on that. I think it's also hard when you are doing a book in a psych ward because you have to deal with the mental health issues very delicately. I think those are the parts that didn't really sell me as much. She does put a disclaimer at the beginning that obviously, like, she did do research, she did have a sensitivity reader that helped her out, but it's also still fiction. So, like, you can't really hold her to a high standard at the same time. So I get that. But there was just one character in particular that I think, with the medical diagnosis that she had compared to the actions that she did or the behavior she displayed, I feel like it was a very big jump. So it was just, like, hard to believe personally, or it just felt like there was something missing there. I don't know, or she just used the medical diagnosis just to, like, as like a convenience thing instead of it actually making sense to the story. So that was the only reason why I didn't give it a 5-star. I still like The Housemaid better for some reason. I don't know if it's because I read The Housemaid first, and that was my first Frida McFadden book, so now I compare everything to The Housemaid. But I like this better than the Teacher for sure. The Teacher wasn't my favorite. But this one was still really good. It was very entertaining. It definitely kept you guessing. And I liked how she didn't go with the obvious plot twists for the whole thing. There was one plot twist that I guessed, but I think it was still well done. So overall, I definitely recommend if you're looking for a fast-paced thriller. Then we had a 6-star book that finally got me out of the slump. I will say the Frida book did help with the slump too, because it was very fast-paced. But I read Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. You gotta see how many tabs I have in this thing. Look at this. Pretty much every page has a tab. Okay. I am obsessed with Dusty and Cam. This is the last book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and probably my most anticipated because it's a second chance romance. They have history together. She is a single mom. He's a very interesting character because he gives like cowboy vibes, but he also gives like emo vibes. So he's like emo cowboy, which is right up my alley. She is a very like type A people pleaser kind of character, which I resonate with. So I definitely felt seen reading this book, and I just love the tension and the history between them. I love getting the little flashback scenes to when they first met in high school and they were like passing notes back and forth to each other. And then you go back to now where she is actually a jilted bride. The book starts off with her showing up to her wedding to a note from her groom saying, "I can't do this." So the wedding is off. She goes to the bar to, you know, drink her troubles away, and no one is able to get her out of that bar except for Dusty. No one knows her like he does. And I love that. I love that. I already want to reread this, and that's how I know it's a 6-star book. So highly recommend if you're looking for a cute cowboy romance series. I love this series so much. Done and Dusted is a close second to this one. The second book is probably my least favorite, but I still really liked the characters. It was just too short in my opinion. And then the third book was really good. It kind of gives like Heartless by Elsie Silver vibes, where it's like single dad nanny. Actually, the dad in that one is the dad to the same daughter of this woman character. So that part was kind of cool. Yeah, love it. I'm excited to see what Lila Sage does next. And I was happy to finally have a 6-star book in the month of April to get me out of the slump. And then because I wanted similar vibes, I decided to go into Wild Side by Elsie Silver. This is another small town single mom, kind of single mom romance. So this one starts off where the female main character, her sister has recently died, and she is now taking care of her nephew. But the male main character was actually listed as the legal guardian in her sister's will. So they're kind of like battling that. It's kind of hate to love at the beginning, where she is obviously mad that she has to like now share custody of her nephew with this guy she like doesn't even know. There's clearly like secrets that her sister had about the relationship she had with this guy, and then the guy also doesn't really understand the sister relationship because he thought they were estranged, but she was very involved in her sister and her nephew's life. So it's just, there's definitely some miscommunication going on, which I know rubs people the wrong way sometimes, but I personally didn't mind it in this book. I think it was well done. I think it had really good banter and tension between the characters, even though if they would have just talked to each other, it would have been very clear. But I think that the Milme character gives a good reason as to why he doesn't have that conversation. I don't know, just trust me, just trust me. But I gave this 5 stars. I did. The Milme character is also a wrestler, which I didn't know how I was gonna feel, but kind of hot. And they also have a marriage of convenience because he is an American citizen, but this takes place in Canada. So because he has to keep coming back and forth to help take care of the nephew, the Border Patrol is kind of like, okay, this is fishy, what's going on? So they do also like get married in the middle of it to help with that. That's not a spoiler. It has a little wedding cake topper right there on the cover, you guys. So, is it even focused on that? Yeah, I really like this one. The Roseville series is definitely growing on me. The first book, I was a little iffy, but the second book and this book have definitely won me over. I love it. 5 star for sure. Okay, and the last book for the month of April is Prodigal Son by Sarah Kate. Talk about emotional and angsty and forbidden. Hold on, I don't think you're ready for this. If you've read the other books in this series, basically all the books in this series follow brothers who have a father who was a... It is kind of a stereotype, but you know, like that stereotypical pastor that kind of owns the town. He's got this big mega church that brings in all this money, but he's actually corrupt and is terrible to his family. You know, like it's that kind of stereotype, right? So this is the last book in that series, and it's about the youngest brother who ran away from home when he was 17 because he's gay and he was not treated well by the father for obvious reasons. So he has been living a secret life. He is a country singer now under a different name. He's under an alias, and he kind of like singer-songwriter vibes, you know, not really that big of a thing. But now in this book, he is starting to go viral and he is getting more popular. And he has a fan come to his show. They hit it off, they have an instant spark, and that fan is the new pastor who has taken over the church of this other male main character's father. and it's an age gap, okay? This was so good, you guys. This was so good. I gave it 5 stars. They definitely get together pretty early on, so you think there's not going to be a lot of conflict, but then you start to hear more about the past of the pastor mailman character and kind of, you know, things that he's gone through with his sexuality, and that is a whole roller coaster and definitely a doozy. So be sure to check your trigger warnings for this one because it does have some pretty deep and dark topics in it. But I think Sarah Kate did a really good job. You could tell that she really took her time to fully fledge out the trauma that both of these characters have gone through, and it was so rewarding when they're able to, you know, where it is a romance, okay? They work through it. It's a happy ending. We all know this. But there were definitely some parts along the way where I was questioning, I'm not gonna lie. So even though they do get together pretty early on, and that would normally deter me because it's like, okay, now what? She definitely keeps it going. So this was a great one. 5 stars for sure. I love Sarah Kate. All right, that's gonna be it for a monthly wrap up. We are all caught up now. Be sure to give this video a like and leave a comment down below telling me a book that you think I should add to my TBR, or maybe a book that you read recently that you liked or didn't like. Let me know. Let's chat in the comments, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see my future videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.